Our dog learned his name first. The first time I heard the name was not from Lena's mouth. It was from the dog's. Not literally. He's a shepherd mix with a bark like a gavel and a vocabulary of 6, but he said it with his body. I was halfway through slicing peppers when the lock clicked and he launched off the couch, ears forward, tail windmilling in a way he reserves for a very short list of living beings. Not me. Not the mail carrier who bribes him with dehydrated guilt. Someone new who smelled like the inside of a good coat and confidence. "Hey, buddy," the man said, kneeling. The dog did that low whine he saves for people he wants to memorize. "Miss me?" Lena stepped in behind him with a bag of groceries and a posture like a performance review. "Mark," she said, too brightly, "this is Alec, from the agency." Alec stood, and I did the horrible polite thing that happens when your life arrives unannounced. I wiped my hands, extended one, produced a smile with the right number of teeth. He had an eye-crinkling grin that would have booked him in a toothpaste ad if he hadn't gone into branding. His coat looked expensive without apologizing for it. The dog leaned against his shin like an admission. "We were in the neighborhood," Lena said. "He carried the heavy things." "Truly a feat," I said, looking at the bag. Lemons, basil, the cheap good wine, plus the green olive she hates and a bunch of parsley too large for honesty. Alec took the hint, or pretended to. He squeezed the dog's head, murmured something that made an ear flick, and left with a wave that felt like it had practice. When the door shut, the dog kept staring at it, that canine superstition that expects doors to relent if you adore them enough. I looked at Lena. She looked at the counter as if it might volunteer to be the person she was supposed to be next. "He's on the clangement pitch," she said, shrugging off her coat. "We were going over placement. He's fine." The dog sneezed like punctuation. I wanted to be the person who asks a clean question. I am the person who tests an assumption in private first. That night, after Lena fell asleep with a book tented on her chest and a mouth softened into honesty, I scrolled through the footage on the pet cam we set up last winter when the dog was eating socks like a side hustle. The cloud had saved a lot of mid-afternoon naps and one heroic standoff with a vacuum. It had also saved the dog's performance every time the door opened for Alec in the last 2 weeks. Launch. Whine, joyous orbit. The footage didn't show Lena and Alec doing anything illegal. They stood in the entry and talked in that too-contained way people do when they've agreed to be careful. He touched her elbow once lightly, like he was reminding himself gravity exists. I turned off the feed and lay back down next to the woman I know better than I know my own patience. The dog snored. Outside, the city ran its eternal errands. I put my hand on Lena's back in the dark and felt the even swell of breath. It calmed me and it didn't. I spent the next few days being almost perfect. That is how self-respecting cowards survive. I brought coffee to her edit. I laughed at the right places in her stories. I pretended not to notice that our grocery list contained someone else's preferences in a new, tentative font. Alec's name didn't appear anywhere, which of course made it louder. On Thursday, I came home to find the dog standing squarely in the kitchen doorway, ears up, as if trying to conduct me into a revelation. He had one of Lena's scarves in his mouth, the blue one she wears when she wants attention without admitting it. It smelled faintly of cedar and a cologne I couldn't place. The scarf had a knot in it that was not one of her knots. A simple loop, practical, fast. "Drop," I said. He sighed and gave it to me with a show of reluctance, then wagged like he'd delivered news. I texted Lena, "Dinner at home, tell me what kind of night you want." She replied with the kind of naked relief that makes your chest forgive the calendar. "Home, home, the slow kind." I cooked as if devotion were a sport you could win with butter. When she came in, the dog performed, as always, the ceremony of welcome. He did not check for Alec. Small mercies. We ate on the stools because plates at the table felt like a statement. She told me about a director who confused mood with fog. I told her about a client who wanted a countertop to look like fidelity. We clinked cheap wine and kissed like we were reintroducing ourselves. Later, in the soft light of our bedroom, I put my mouth where her pulse asks for attention, and she answered in a language I know by heart. We kept it where morning could respect it, shirts half lifted, hands sure, breath shared, stopping when stopping felt like a promise instead of a punishment. The dog snored on the mat like an old man who trusted the house again. At 2, when the city tried on silence like a borrowed coat, Lena's phone lit up with a name that was not saved as Alec. Just a letter and an emoji, the kind of thief you train into your life. I did not pick it up. I stared at the ceiling and narrated quietly to myself a life where I asked for honesty and believed it when it arrived. In the morning, breakfast was a truce with fruit. I poured coffee. She buttered toast with the seriousness of an oath. I said, "What is his name when you talk about him to yourself?" She set the knife down slowly. "Alec," she said. The sound of it landed neatly like a well-made shoe. She met my eyes and did not look away. "I was going to tell you, not like this. Not while we are feeding the dog." "Are you in love?" I asked, not angry, tired. "I don't know," she said, immediate and unhelpful in the only honest way available. "I like being looked at like I'm not a project. I like that he doesn't fill silence out of fear. I like you more." The dog licked the butter knife and made a noise like a vote. I set my cup down. "We can be braver than this," I said. "Not louder, braver. Let's do the month. You at Maya's, me at Liam. We find a therapist with ugly chairs and bad tea, and we tell the kind of truth that survives sunlight. We stop pretending the dog can split his loyalty." She laughed then, impossibly, and it saved us for 5 more minutes. "He will follow whoever has meat," she said. "We can at least be that smart." We packed like adults. She took the hoodie that makes her into a person I want to pull to me. I took the plant we have repeatedly forgotten to rename. At the door, she reached up and touched my cheek in a way that has always been our private sacrament. "Can I have your face for a second?" she asked. "You can have a kiss," I said, "not as bail, as fact." It was a good kiss. It felt like the first day we said yes inside our bodies. It ended because we told it to, and that felt like proof we hadn't ruined everything yet. Liam's couch maintains archives. He did not ask questions, he fetched blankets. We watched a game where people in uniform solved their problems with choreography, and I let my brain take notes. At 11, my phone pinged. An unknown number. "This is Alec. I will leave you alone. If you want me to be a person you have met instead of a silhouette, I'll be at the bench by the bakery at noon. If not, I'll be practicing shutting up." I told myself to ignore it. Self told me to be a grown-up. I went. He wore the same good coat in worse light. He looked less like a poster and more like a guy who knows how to find a light switch without waking a room. He had 2 coffees and the decency not to push mine toward me until I nodded. "I am stepping back," he said, and for once the phrase didn't sound like PR. "I told her that whatever she is building with you will not have to share scaffolding with me. I am moving to the client you hate in Newark. Consider it penance." "You don't owe me a map of your ethics," I said. "You owe her a simple hallway." He nodded, eyes on the dog bakery across the lane. "Do you want me to apologize?" "Only if it makes you useful later," I said. "Right now I prefer silence with a job." He smiled, wry and small. "I can do that." Therapy was exactly the cliché with better ventilation. The chairs were mismatched. The rug had survived other people's floods. The therapist asked questions that made kindness expensive. I wanted to turn off the narrator in my head, Lena said. He made that easy, I said. I wanted to be so good I didn't need to check on you. That wasn't love. That was laziness with a cape. We left feeling scraped and somehow taller. I met a woman in this month named Myra, because the world sends bench angels when you stop auditioning for better scenes. I was on a walk I pretended was exercise. She was on a walk she admitted was escape. We fell into step and then into a habit. She had the kind of voice that makes sentences brave. We kissed once on a corner where a tree had decided to survive and kept it small and brilliant. My hand learned the respectful map of her shoulder. Her mouth learned that my pace is slower than the movies. We stopped because we liked ourselves too much to rush. On Sundays, Lena and I met at the cafe with the wobble-legged chairs and asked each other two questions we stole from some article neither of us admitted to reading. When did you want to run? When did you want to stay? Her answers were boring, which I've learned is the secret spice of loyalty. She wanted to run when the elevator mirror made her look like a life she hadn't chosen. She wanted to stay when she remembered the shape of my laugh and how the dog sits in our doorway guarding nothing but the idea of home. I wanted to run whenever a man in a good coat ordered olives. I wanted to stay when I pictured old versions of us misplacing the remote and not minding. The dog adjusted by making sure his bowl was always near whoever was speaking. He stopped listening for Alex's knock by the third week. He started bringing me the blue scarf, unknotted, like an apology he had made with his mouth. I accepted. At the end of the month, Lena came back with a bag and a face that had stopped performing for the plant. We sat at the table under the honest light and did not do speeches. "Rebuild," she said. "Rebuild," I said. "Slow, no monuments, no genius. Tuesdays and dishwasher tabs. We date each other in a home we already share." We wrote rules like grocery lists, report temptation like weather, ban rooms without windows, schedule boredom on purpose. If the dog learns a new name, it will be the name of a toy. We kissed like a handshake and then like a homecoming. In bed, we undressed like people tidying, not staging. My mouth found the warm strip of skin at her waist. Her breath discovered my ear again. We stopped where we meant to, and a different part of me than pride felt satisfied. Alex sent one last message. "No cameo," I wrote back. "Thank you." The dog, on cue, barked at the mail slot. We laughed like superstitious people in a house they planned to haunt together someday. Myra texted a photo of a bench in new light and wrote, "Choose ordinary and earn heat." I told her about the dog and the scarf, and how a name can be a problem and a solution at once. She sent back a heart that looked like it had paid rent. We named the plant. Not love or forgive or the sort of joke you regret later. We named it after because that is what you build when you stop auditioning for before. It started leaning, as plants do, toward whatever window we opened that day. The dog wagged at it like it was trying. Some mornings I swear I hear Lena say his name in her sleep, and I flinch before reality returns. It's the dog, dreaming, tom-tomming the world with his paws. He is chasing something he will never catch. He is endlessly happy about the attempt. Last night we made dinner without consulting a list. The dog lay on the threshold, guarding the kingdom of the stove like a knight sworn to leftovers. Lena slid her hand under my shirt while the water boiled and told me with her palm what we were going to do about the rest of the evening. We kept it honest and daylight-friendly and didn't care that the night was listening. When we were done not going too far, the dog sighed like satisfaction had a shape. The plant leaned. The city forgave us without noticing. And this, I think, is what I wanted all along. A house where the dog knows the correct name to wag for, and it is both of ours, and it does not arrive through the door with a coat I do not own.